Hello everyone, this is Free Name on YouTube. Today we are going to look at the web admin interface of the strong ATRIA AX3000 wireless mesh devices. So let's log in. The default IP address is 192.168.7.254 and the username and password, unless it has been changed, is just admin and then admin. The front page gives you CPU usage, the model name, the uptime, and its serial number and software version. Memory usage, so if you've got lots of stuff going through its NAT, then that would use up more memory. Left side you can click on WAN Info and it will show you details about the connection, and LAN Info will show you details about the Wi-Fi, what channel it's on, and interesting is I didn't think the guest was still enabled when I last looked on the app, because you can also administer this through the ATRIA app. There's another video on my YouTube if you want to have a look at it, which goes through the mobile app. There's also another video about speed testing and benchmarking this router as a Wi-Fi mesh system as well. LAN Ethernet Info shows you what speed each LAN port is connected at, which is quite a useful function. Some routers don't have that, so that's quite nice that it does. And Connected Device Info shows the nodes that you've got, and also the devices which are connected. So I've got my mobile phone, which is on the Wi-Fi, and then this laptop, which is plugged in via Ethernet. For some reason it thinks it's offline though. Oh no, sorry, it's down here. So I'm not actually sure what this device here is. Going over to Setup Wizard, it just talks you through setting up what kind of internet access you have. Interestingly, it's offering bridge mode, which would turn it into essentially just a Wi-Fi access point set of devices. The bridge mode is not an option when using the mobile app. So if you wanted to use them as just access points only rather than have it doing NAT, you will need to use the web admin interface to change that. Talks you through setting up the Wi-Fi, and in my instance I didn't change anything, so it shouldn't have made any difference. Moving on to the Network tab, you can change the WAN configuration, also setting bridge mode and some IPv6 transitional methods within that drop down as well. You can disable IPv6 or run it in IPv6 only mode if you wanted to, and force an MTU value. If you have to set an MTU on your network connection, then your ISP is probably doing something wrong and is running a bit of a poor network. You used to have to do that a long time ago, for example on AOL in the UK. You can set a static IP on the WAN or obtain via DHCP, or if you needed to, if you're on OpenReach type network or your provider uses PPPoE, you can set PPPoE there. Enable NAT mode or disable NAT mode. If you're a power user who doesn't need NAT, then it's unlikely you'll be using this device anyway. So for almost everyone, you will, unless you know why you'd want to turn that off, you will need the NAT enable on. Then you have IPv6 to do with how it acquires an address from the ISP and then whether it delivers that prefix to your LAN. LAN configuration, we have the IP address that it's on, the subnet mask, whether the DHCP server is enabled or disabled, and what IP address it starts from and to, and how long to give the lease out to clients for. You can set a custom DNS server. So this would be if you wanted to point it to a Pi-hole or to your own Active Directory server or something within your LAN, you would fill in the details here. And the DHCP server would give out those DNS addresses to the clients. And you can add static IP addresses. So you could have, say, your CCTV device I have a MAC address of BBAA BB44553322, and it will always be given that IP address. Guess I've misdone the format of the MAC address. Very strange. Oh, that's interesting. It's not even accepting their pre-populated drop-down. No, it does. It does if you select one from the device list, but then you can't change it manually. Let me see if I clear that. Type 1 in. Let's change that to 2. Okay, I guess if you fill one in incorrectly, it then refuses to then let you correct it. And there we go, that's added a, well, once you click on Save and Apply, that will add a static binding for that LAN IP for that MAC address. IPv6, you can turn on and off the router advertisement. So if you wanted IPv6 up to your router, you could then, if you wanted to, disable router advertisements so that your devices in your LAN wouldn't use IPv6. I'm not sure why you'd have that, but you can run it in that mode. So you turn off router advertisements and turn off DHCPv6, and it would disable IPv6 on the LAN side. Change the prefix if you needed to, and once again give out custom IPv6 DNS servers to your clients if you needed to. You can limit the speed that some clients can receive. So I'm going to set 500 kilobits per, well, let's do 5 megabits per second for the mobile phone that I've got to my left, and then let's just see whether that speed limit has applied to that device. Certainly looks like it. At least I've got a massively high ping, and the speed test has not yet started. Yep, 5 megabits per second. So that definitely does do a speed limit. Let's set it to 50, something more reasonable. And it's immediately applied that change, and the speed test I'm running on the phone that's to my left is definitely having its speed limit applied. So that's good that that function works. Under the WLAN tab, you can change a lot of settings to do with the Wi-Fi. The main things you might want to change will be the SSID, which is the name that you see, and the password to connect. The rest of it, I'd recommend leaving as default. Same with everything under advanced settings, unless you know why or what these settings are. To change them, leave them as default. Multiple SSID page, where you can set up multiple Wi-Fi names. WPS, you can trigger the push button connect or fill in a PIN without having to have physical access to the device. Access control, which will be MAC address allow or deny lists for the wireless. MAC address control on Wi-Fi is a really weak way of securing a network, so I would never really advise using this screen. Scheduler, which is for turning off and on Wi-Fi at specific times. In the mobile app, this let you add a time, but then would not let you enable or disable that time. You could only delete and re-add it. And it looks like it's the same in the, even though the mobile app had a toggle switch for enabling and disabling it, and the toggle switch did nothing, this screen I'm looking at here on the web admin interface doesn't even have that toggle. So I guess the mobile app has a toggle where it shouldn't do. All we can do here is delete the schedule if we needed to. However, you can add a schedule which would turn off your Wi-Fi, for example, 9 o'clock through to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening through to 8 o'clock in the morning. Make sure that the time zone is correct. I suspect under system tools or possibly application, we'll need to set the time zone to be UK rather than whatever that default one is, possibly Europe. Easy Mesh is a standard for meshing wireless. It's interesting because I believe that some of the XyXL stuff supports Easy Mesh. I will see if I can find one of those devices and then see whether it is compatible and whether they'll join two different manufacturers worth of Wi-Fi onto the mesh. If I manage that, it's going to be in at least a couple of weeks, maybe months. Have a look at the video description for a link to a video about that if I've managed to do it. Band steering, generally you'll want that on because it will try and punt devices over to 5 GHz when they can cope or when they support it, rather than waiting for the device to do that move itself. Security doesn't tell you what it does, high or low security on the firewall. Who knows what that does. And denial of service, which probably means if you get sent lots of pings, it will stop responding to pings after a certain threshold. Moving on to parental controls, we can have a schedule and a URL filter. So let's see if we enable a URL filter and make sure or see whether it blocks a website. So bbc.co.uk. And indeed, it is blocking that website. If I now remove that or turn off the URL filter, it immediately loads. So that's definitely works. And you can deny based on IP address as well. Access control lists, which allow access to the administration interface from various things, WAN and LAN. I have modified this already to allow WAN ping. By default, WAN ping is not turned on. Moving on to applications, we've got ALGs, which are the application layer gateways. These are bits of software which run within the router and try to make some protocols more reliable. Most of the time, ALGs cause more problems than they solve. It's nice to see on this firmware that the SIP ALG is default disabled, because quite often, again, the SIP ALGs cause more problems than they solve. If you're having problems with any of these protocols, you might want to log into this admin interface and turn off the ALG helper, and it might solve your problem. DMZ is basically port forwarding every single port through to some other device. You generally do not want to do this. It's quite often seen in forums where they suggest that you enable DMZ to get better NAT on your game consoles, or some game help documentation tells you to use DMZ. It's a terrible way of solving a problem. If somebody's telling you to use DMZ to solve a NAT problem, then it's the wrong way of solving a problem. You need to get information out of them about the ports that are used, rather than just port forwarding absolutely everything. In port forwarding, this is where you would add ports if you needed to. So let's add in, for example, it comes with a bunch of default stuff, including EverQuest, amazing. Custom service, let's do my SNTP server, goes through to my server on .99, and it's going to be TCP port 465. So that set the external port start and end, and the internal will default to that. If you need them to go to, for example, if you're listening on port 25 internally but you want it to be on a port 465 externally, then you do something like that. Save and apply, and that's a port forward added. You can't edit it, the only thing you can do is delete it and re-add it if you needed to, but that is that. Moving on to the VPN screen, this supports being a client for an L2TP or a PPTP VPN. Let's give this a go and see how well it works. So let's get the IP address of the server. So the tunnel server needs to be an IP address, and it claims we are connected as well now. So what has happened is this is connected supposedly to the VPN, but isn't routing traffic out of it. The traffic is still going out of my normal internet connection. So I'm not sure why you would have this or what use that is. And I don't see, for example, a static route set up where you could force connectivity out of the VPN connection. If I do find the answer to that, I'll post another video about it and put a link in the description. SNTP, to do with setting the time and time zone. I've got it currently set to London, but this obviously doesn't know about summertime changes. So at the moment we are actually 8:52 PM because we're in British summertime. Even though the time zone is set to London, it's not applying summertime. So twice a year you might need to log in and change the time zone here if you want your Wi-Fi schedules and your parental control schedules to be running on the correct time. Dynamic DNS supports both dyndns, which is not free and you have to pay for, or no IP, which has a paid for tier but also a free tier. So that would be if you wanted a host name that always pointed to your dynamically changing IP address if your ISP doesn't offer you a static IP address. UPnP, interestingly, is disabled by default, so this is the technology that game consoles and programs such as torrent clients or even games on PCs can use to automatically open up port forwards. So normally on most routers this is on by default, but if you are security concerned and you didn't want programs and devices to be able to open up ports going into themselves, then you'd want to turn off UPnP. If you are a gamer and have trouble with port forwards or don't want to manually port forward, then you may want to turn UPnP on. IPTV configuration, not sure. I've never seen IPTV used in any capacity in the UK, so I'm not very qualified to talk about that. Under System Tools, you can change the administration password. Device management, you can reboot it, upgrade the firmware, back up the settings, and I'm curious as to whether that's an encrypted file or a plain text file. The answer is it's some sort of binary file, potentially encrypted, so you can't just open up the backup, change a config, and then re-upload it. Settings upgrade, which will be if you'd backed up your settings previously and you wanted to restore it, and then restore to defaults, which will factory reset the router. Set the lights on the routers, and I think it affects all of, in fact it says, no, it doesn't say that, in the app it tells you that when you change it here it will affect all of the satellite routers or satellite Wi-Fi points or mesh nodes as well. System log, by default, is disabled. I turned it on the other day so that we'd have some logs to see when I look at this now. So by default all of this is set, but it would be set to disabled. I've turned it to enabled. We're debug level logging, but we're only going to show error logs. So let's have a look at the logs. Some stuff about Broadcom Ethernet, link rates being up and down. That's a very interesting one. We've got switch port 5, logical port, switch port 5, logical port 5, physical ID 6, link rate is up at 2.5 gigabits per second, which isn't possible because I don't have any 2.5 gigabit devices around here, so that's a fairly interesting thing. Maybe that's an internal link to the Wi-Fi access point, maybe? And if so, then their AX3000 is a bit interesting because it could only ever achieve 2.5 gigabit, maybe. That's just me totally guessing though. And then the diagnostic screen. So let's try pinging a host name. Okay, so it definitely doesn't work pinging from the bridge interface. We can try from this interface, which would be the internet interface. Okay, that does work. That's the end of the web admin interface. Hopefully this video has been helpful to you. If it has, it would be really helpful to me if you wouldn't mind subscribing to my YouTube channel. You don't need to have the video notifications switched on, but the subscriber numbers really do help. So thank you very much. Also have a look in the description for links to some other videos about this router, the mobile app for configuration, and also just general speed testing of these devices as well. Thanks very much.